Hi, hunters. Thank you for tuning into the Flush'em and Dustin podcast brought to you by Nick and Tyler, the boys from Ringnecks and Retrievers. In this podcast, we will talk about guns, dogs, gear, and our successes and failures in the field through our combined 40 years of experience. We speak with hunters just like you from across the nation about their days in the field and the many memories they built with their friends and family. We are excited to have you listen. Now let's get to Flushing and Dustin.
Welcome, hunters, back to another Flush and Dustin episode. We got Nick and Tyler here, along with special guest Ryan Eater from Southfork Kennels. We're excited to have him on tonight. Before we get into it, we got to give a special shout out to Gundog Outdoors. Nick and I have recently used their first aid kit in the field. If you haven't seen that, check out the Instagram video. Very thankful to have that first aid kit, and we've used their water bottles as well out in the field. So check out Gundog Outdoors at gundogoutdoors.com and use code RINGNECKS to save 15%. Ryan, thank you for joining us tonight. We definitely appreciate it. We're excited to have you on. So if you could give Ryan, if you could give us a little bit of background about you, your kennels, and how you got started.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, guys. I appreciate the invite. Nick, are you the new father?
I am.
Congratulations is in order.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you have two children now?
I have two, yeah. So I have Maya, who is 20 months on the 24th, and then so I'm gonna have two under two, and then obviously we just had Olivia, on December 16th, so last Wednesday. So not too far.
So two daughters.
Yeah.
So you and I have a lot more in common than I even thought, because I have a 1 and a 3-year-old, both
wow.
girls. So we're about in the same boat, 2 years apart.
Yep.
I hope you guys get more sleep than we do.
Oh man, it's been pretty brutal for me those last couple nights. My wife ended up having to have a C-section, unfortunately. So she can't lift our, almost 2-year-old up. You always got to set her down, so got to do that. And then, she's struggling to get out of bed because, it's major surgery, so I always got to get her out of bed. So I'm shouldering all of the child lifting and everything like that. So yeah, it's been a challenge.
Yeah, we had the exact same situation. So I just wish you guys the best. Congratulations, and I hope your wife recovers, really well and fast. And but yeah, I really appreciate the invite, guys, because our kennel, Southfork Retrievers, we're located in Trevor, Wisconsin, southeast Wisconsin, literally a mile north of the Illinois border. I'm from Northeast Illinois, so I'm still local to my family, and we got the opportunity to kind of take my passion to the next level. I've always loved taking care of dogs, and I think if you're going to breed dogs, that's first and foremost what you have to love to do, because that's essentially all you do.
Absolutely.
I started out wanting to train and just build performance dogs, and I started in upland. I trained, literally meat dogs for people, and that's kind of what got me started as the local kid that could make your dog a better pheasant dog. Here where I'm located, and I told you guys this kind of in the pre-discussion, there's no wild bird population here. Everybody belongs to or just goes to open to public preserves. We do have some state parks, both in Illinois and Wisconsin, very close to my house, that release birds regularly during the season. So you simulate a bird hunt, but we all know wild birds is a different animal, and you guys being in Iowa still get to experience that. And so, when I graduated college, I had already been training locally as a teenager and up through my undergrad years at a local kennel, where that was all I did. I trained the breeder's dogs because he did not have time. He was older, had knee injuries, and started guiding upland hunts with those dogs. At the time, I thought they were, the Cadillac of bird dogs. And I'm still proud of the work I did, but wow, it's evolved, and it's amazing when you train 10 dogs, then 20, then 30, what you can do, what that end result really is. And then I ended up out in your guys' neck of the woods. I made the golden mistake of following a girlfriend to school, and
Where'd you go to school?
I ended up at Iowa State. And to make sense of it all, I said, well, I'm going to go to grad school, Mom and Dad. It's really a worthwhile move, Not that it wasn't. And hindsight's 2020. it really brought me here. I mean, I met so many people that bird hunted and waterfowl hunted, and ended up meeting a couple of dog training mentors who gave me the know-how to even try what I do today. Um, you know, we breed Labrador retrievers and golden retrievers. I know you guys are hunting over a couple of goldens right now, so I can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah.
What direction do you want to take it? I mean, we do run hunt tests. Okay, that's kind of my main thing.
Okay.
And you could argue that's not related to upland, but the HRC actually has an upland test and an upland title, and then the AKC allows the Labradors, or the retrieving breeds rather, to run the spaniel test so that they can actually be trained at the highest level of upland work. You know, sitting to the flush, steady to wing,
Oh wow.
shot, fall.
Nice.
And that's something to be kind of cool to talk to you guys about, because honestly, as a trainer, there's a lot of purists that are going to disagree with me, but I'll say it anyway. I don't really want my dogs to be that steady and that under control, because
I agree with you on that.
and I would love to touch on it because I think it's interesting and get your guys' take. But I think one thing worth mentioning, and then I'd rather just answer questions because I hate blabbering about myself. But when I was at Iowa State, I worked with a guy who was training and breeding Chesapeake Bay Retrievers, and that was a breed that I had no experience with. And in my opinion, it's probably the best breed for someone to learn how to train on, because they're a much touchier personality than a golden or a Labrador. You learn that balance of, you know, teaching, being patient, positive repetition, and reward. This is a breed that cannot deal with being, you know, heavy-handed style training. They don't bounce back. They'll stop. They'll shut down. Or you can get the opposite, where it's so hard-headed and just won't do it. And they're big and tough enough to get away with it. But on the other side of the coin, I met and who's still a great friend, and we haven't talked in a year or so because he made a career change, but he was training German Shorthair Pointers and Labradors specifically for the upland game. And so
Oh
on
wow.
weekends, if I wasn't retriever training, I was shooting quail for a pointing dog trainer and just kind of getting exposed to this sport. And so, you know, I didn't grow up hunting. I got into it later in life, you know, 18, 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up saying, hey, more people need to there needs to be some off-season activities for people to run their dogs in upland venues and get that experience. Because
Absolutely.
if you watch these dogs do this, I don't care what breed, I don't care what you're doing, what species of bird you're shooting, there's no way people can't get interested in this.
No. I
Agreed.
agree. I agree.
I mean, when that tail goes up and they get birdie, and I mean, you've done it 1,000 times and your heart pumps. So I was like, we have to create. I mean, I'm a marketing guy. That's kind of what I do. And so we started the Upland Gun Dog Association, where we ran hunt test and time trials specifically for upland dogs.
Oh, nice.
And it had no following. We just decided to do it. And I was in Iowa, so all of our first few events were out, you know, between where you guys live. We were in the Iowa City area, out near Des Moines, up in north central Iowa. So before we get into the further conversation, I wanted to mention that because we recognized that the upland portion of dog work didn't have as many venues and events for people to get interested in. And then as the guy that created it, and I got to judge all the hunt tests, I have seen every breed there is do this work. And
Oh, yeah.
so
That's crazy.
it really is a cool deal. So I'm excited to talk to you guys, and, you know, shoot, whatever you want to discuss, let's go.
Man, that's exciting. Well, I think we'll just start off with, we'll go back and get into the conversation of, you didn't want a dog steady to shot. Let's kick that off. I mean, people probably want to know what your thoughts are that, what our thoughts are on that. So let's do that. Let's
Yeah,
hit it.
and again, like I said, I say that tongue in cheek because I know when people listen to this, I'm going to get the emails,
Yeah.
especially from people in the spaniel world and people who run HRC.
Yep.
Yep. Oh,
If
yeah.
you follow the Grand, which is, you know, arguably the biggest hunt test in the whole game, you know, the HRC Grand,
Yep.
the last series of the Grand is an upland series. Okay. Um, let's rewind a little bit though. Okay, most of these dogs that run that are not upland dogs. So the joke about the Grand is that at the motel the night before the 6th series or the 5th series, whichever it is, you've got guys out there hitting the sit whistle and burning dogs on the collar to get them to sit to a flush because
Yep.
Now, luckily, these are highly trained dogs that already sit on a whistle. They run blind retrieve. So you're
Yep.
kind of just taking that and translating it or transferring it into an upland scenario.
Yep.
But, I'll tell you guys, because of the Upland Gun Dog Association and running the time trials where it's get 3 birds as fast as you can. And and Nick, you had mentioned how many shells. So if you take extra shots, you get penalty time, and
Yep.
it's exhilarating. It's fun. It's competitive. It's the perfect game for off-season work or just to have some fun. But I mean, if you're in a timed venue and that dog sits and then you shoot it and then they have to mark it through 6-foot tall cover and go look for it, you're adding time to that stopwatch versus a dog that's already halfway there when it's being shot.
Yep.
You're making up that time. And I'm not saying that that's a great argument, because I recognize that a steady dog is in a safer position. No one's shooting
Correct.
over its
Yep.
head. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for that. And I'm actually training my first English Springer Spaniel right now. And in that world, you steady your dog. There is no such thing as a non-steady, Spaniel if you look at how they play their games. So I think everything has a place. And then I think if I was out hunting with you guys, which I'd love to do, if you're shooting wild birds and you don't kill that bird, those suckers are gone, man. I mean, you are.
Well, I don't know, Ryan, if you saw our Instagram posts from out when we were out in South Dakota. But we literally shot a bird. We knew it wasn't hit hard. All 3 dogs, Diesel, Tyler's 2 Goldens, Murph and Lola, all running towards it. Could not find that son of a bitch.
Exactly.
Gone. We're like,
Exactly.
what the hell? Next thing you know, Diesel takes off and tracks that bird about 150 yards and found it. Like,
And in how much time? I mean, 150 yards is crazy when you look at the size of a bird, and it ran the whole way.
Oh, that
Yeah.
bird was gone in a heartbeat. You know,
And
2 minutes,
and
not even
imagine
30 seconds. It was just
imagine
boom,
if all
boom.
3 of those dogs sat on the whistle and waited to be sent.
Yeah.
You'd have been
Yep.
even that much farther behind. And because these dogs are conservation tools, the objective is not to wound a bird and have it out there running around.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. And we did a 100-bird challenge at Beck Ridge in Sabula, Iowa. And I know we are all familiar with that place. This was November. Granted, this is an unseasonably warm and no snow type of winter for us out here. I know you guys have gotten a little bit of snow.
Yeah, but it's still warm down here too. We had that couple cold days, but it's not like it used to be.
No, it's
Even
not
like
a typical winter.
Even South Dakota, when we were out there, birds weren't sitting tight. It was 40 freaking degrees out there. Like,
Exactly.
sucks.
And it screwed up everything, the waterfowl season, the migration, everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, my point is that when we're doing that 100-bird challenge, we were walking through 7 or 8 feet of cover, and the food plots and the corn was super tall. And I mean, dogs weren't even penetrating this cover. It was so thick. It wasn't beat down by snow or anything yet.
Yep.
And I sit there and think to myself, if these dogs were sitting on the whistle and waiting to be sent on this retrieve, it's like trying to mark something over a 20-foot wall if you look at it from their vantage point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really
Versus their natural momentum. And so is it the safest method? No, you need to be hunting with people who are safety conscious. And absolutely, I mean, hunting with a dog is always something you need to be conscious of where that dog is and, where you're shooting, which I would just assume at this level, as a trainer, a handler, you guys as hunters, we just know that.
Yes, absolutely.
But
Knock
yeah, I
on
mean,
wood,
I don't
we
like
haven't
it.
had any injuries other than, a dog run into a stick or something like that.
Yeah,
Had
sure.
No injuries while hunting.
Yeah, you play it safe as much as you can, which some people are going to say that steady to wing shot and fall is a safety measure, but I'll tell you, it's just not practical for almost any application, in my opinion.
Yep.
I agree. And I mean, like you touched on it too. As hunters, people that are carrying guns, one of the main gun rules is don't pull the trigger until you've confirmed your target, what's behind it, what's below it. You don't put your finger on the trigger until you are ready to kill that bird. And as part of being a hunter, when you see that bird out there, you should know where your dogs are, where the dogs are, and be aware of, is that bird high enough to shoot for safety, or is it too low? Maybe you have to let it go.
But Ryan, I gotta tell you, Tyler does a lot of confirming, but not a lot of killing.
Well,
Miss a lot of them damn birds.
Well, me and Tyler can join the same club. That's awesome.
Well, at least better to hit nothing than hit a dog, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, even if you miss them all, Tyler, you can sit by me at lunch and we won't make fun of each other because I'll be right there with you.
I know. It's like, I was like, oh, I think I got enough shells for the year. Then we're halfway through the year, and I'm like, fuck, I need to buy a couple more boxes. This ain't going good.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I'm taking my dad tomorrow morning to a local game farm, literally 20 minutes up the road. It's where I buy all my birds for training. And my dad has never pheasant or chucker hunted in his life.
Oh, wow.
So I'm
That'd be
taking
fun.
him. I'm so pumped, and I can tell he's going to humor me, but I don't care. I'm so excited. Um, Actually,
he's gonna love it.
I hope so, because after him and like you guys know about my long vacation, my email away message came to you. I'm off through the rest of the year. So tomorrow morning I'm taking my dad. Tuesday morning I'm taking my wife for the first time.
So
Very
I
cool.
actually took my wife. Oh God, it was before Maya, so over 2 years ago. I took her out, and Diesel actually he's a pointing lab, so it's pretty nice and it works well for her. But yeah, she shot. I took her to a pheasant farm and she got hooked, and then we kept going a couple times that year, and then obviously she got pregnant, and I tried to take her once when she was pregnant, and she said, "This is bullshit. I ain't doing this again." So.
I could have told you she might not have liked that one, but I mean, you know what? You guys know as well as I do. I guess I'm going to say two things. One is to kind of be funny, but if we can include the family, we get to hunt more.
Oh, you got
Absolutely.
that
You know
right.
what I mean? And there's a ton of positives there. I'm not just being sarcastic or cute about it. I think if I could get my girls to love doing this, and I think about the potential, and when you have a kennel full of dogs, if you can load up the dogs and the family and go do something together, you're kind of checking all your check boxes. The dogs are getting their
Yep.
exercise, they're
Yep.
training. But the other side, and I told my dad this, and my dad and we're super close, but we're not really, we're men about things. We aren't very touchy feely. We don't really talk about emotions. But I said, Dad, I promise you, you've lived in this area your whole life and you have never seen the sights and the sounds, and just when you're out in that field and the sun's coming up, and I mean, you've lived here your whole life, but you've never seen it like this
Yeah.
out in
That's
nature. It is
it's
cool,
true,
man.
especially if there's a little frost on the
Oh
Exactly.
grass,
man.
and you get a
Yes,
little maybe a little fog over top of it. Oh
no
man,
doubt.
those are the best mornings.
And you
Yep.
combine that with some of these dogs putting birds in the air, and you just sit there and go, holy shit, why have I not done this my whole
Well,
life?
and your dad will see. I'm sure your dogs, once they know that, hey, we're going hunting, they start getting a little amped up, getting
Oh
ready
yeah.
to go. Your dad's gonna see that and be like, "Are these dogs? Are they really that excited for this?" Like, yeah, man,
Man, I
that's
hope
part
that's
of it.
what he sees. I hope
That's
they don't. I hope they don't tank tomorrow and make this. I'm gonna run my older guy, Colt. He's kind of the dog that started all this. I'm gonna run him with a couple of newbies they're looking good in training. It's not like they haven't done this.
Yep.
And essentially a preserve hunt is no different than what I'm doing in training. I just pay someone else to plant the birds, I guess.
Now,
But
is Colt?
it'll be cool.
Are your dogs? Is Colt? Are they Goldens? Are they Labs?
So
What do you?
I'm running all labs tomorrow.
Okay.
Colt is a black Labrador Retriever.
How old is he?
Uh, he is 10.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
Other than some gray on his muzzle and his paws, he runs like a 3-year-old. The only difference is the day after, he'll be a little stiff.
Yep.
Yep.
So obviously nutrition, we do a little bit of supplementation, the bone and joint stuff, and a Dasequin, I think it's called, or something.
I do that as well, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
it's worth it. But we're very lucky with him. We keep him in good shape, like you guys probably do with your dogs, and
Yep.
it's worked wonders. So I'm taking Colt, and then I have a yellow girl who just turned 2. Her name's Mia, and she's bred really well, even better pedigree than Colt. And she's a nice dog, and actually she'd be one that's worth mentioning in this discussion at some point, because upland hunting has actually been the answer to some of my problems in her hunt test training, believe
Oh,
it or not, as a confidence builder and kind of a, hey, get out and produce your own bird and start feeling a little more sure of yourself and
Yep.
develop a little bit more of because you got to remember, and I don't know how, you said you ran a couple of tests, right, Nick?
yeah. Yep. I did.
So I mean, you understand marking enough to understand that if they don't step on that bird the minute they get out there, they have to hunt that area to find it.
Yep.
And so Mia was one of those dogs that if she didn't step on that bird, she'd kind of get frantic, like, oh no, what am I gonna do? and she didn't hunt really intelligently. She would kind of just go all over the place, and it looked real erratic. And, in a hunt test, as long as they pick the bird up and don't leave that area, you'll probably pass.
Yeah.
But in field trials, you don't have a prayer's chance if you aren't able to mark fairly well. I mean, they're judging that. Did you go out and front foot step on that thing and come back, or did you have a big hunt? And those are your differentiators in a field trial environment or a competitive environment. So for her, I'm like, let's put birds out in a field and let's just let her get out there and wind them and flush them and chase them. I even put clip wing birds out there the first couple of sessions so that she could catch them.
Oh,
Nice.
that's a good idea.
And and I mentioned to you that my background kind of started with pointers and retrievers at the same time. And if you think about flushers versus retrievers, Nick, you being the exception with a pointing lab, on the pointing side, you never want that dog to catch a bird, because if they catch it, why would they point?
Yep.
Yep.
But then on the flusher side, we train with dead birds a lot. We want them to smell it and bum rush it and grab it and get so confident getting in there. It's opposite. It's like, let them catch them, let them catch them. So with Mia, it worked wonders. And so I'm excited to kind of see how she puts it together. And then we're running another 1.5-year-old chocolate dog named Ruff, who kind of the same deal. She's, for whatever reason, she's not as sure of herself as I would like her to be. And I'm hoping that this is that diet of bird exposure that'll fix it.
Yeah, I would say Diesel's to the pointing. I never taught him to do that. It's a gene that expresses itself in him, and he just started doing it after he turned 1. I was like, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, I didn't even know what the hell he's doing. I was like, what are you doing?
If you guys want to get 1 million clicks, you should call this episode Labs Point.
Yeah, I probably will.
Because I'm telling you, and I, again, same with my steady to wing shot and fall theory, a lot of people get pissed when I say this. More labs point than lab purists want to admit.
Oh yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I didn't even know he's not even like. If you go to his pedigree, they never said anything about pointing labs. And all of a sudden, one day we were walking. We weren't even to cover yet. We were walking through like a hayfield, and it just got done snowing, fresh snow. Right after he was like 1.5. All of a sudden, we're in the middle of this field, and he stops and he's pointing. And I go, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm like, "Let's go, come on!" And I don't have a command to release him off of it or anything. All of a sudden, he just dives in there, and I'll be damned, nobody was ready. Kicked up a fucking bird. And I was like, oh. And then
And that was the last time you ignored that point.
it was. And now he does it all the time. And with running birds, it's more of a flash point. So like he stops for, maybe 5 seconds, and then you can tell he's on something, and then he'll move. And he'll track that bird. So he will flush birds too. It's not like he just stops and points, but if a bird's sitting tight, he'll point that bird.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
Colt kind of does that too. And I will say this. I don't know if they're pointing the same way that, say, you guys have seen videos of like 8-week-old English pointers literally steadily pointing. I think that pointing can be misconstrued, depending on how you look at it. It could just be this anticipatory reflex of, I smell something in there. What is it? And they kind of stop and contemplate for a second. But at the same time, Nick, you hit the nail on the head. If I take my wife, I hope Colt does that, because it gives me that extra second for her to get ready. She's not gun savvy yet. She's not super experienced. We both have young girls. In a few years, they'll be probably starting with some BB guns or something, and then we'll go to 410s. And, I almost kind of want a pointer so that we can have more of a safe, collected approach to that flush.
Yeah, because they're not the walking, pulling up, safety off, pull the trigger, aiming, all that is not going to happen.
It's hard enough to do stationary, like when you go to the range and you stand there with the gun on your shoulder and you say pull, and when people are learning to shoot, they wait for that clay target to go over the barrel and they just pull the trigger. They're not even aiming at that stage. That's hard to do stationary, let alone walking, like you just said. So I mean, but a lot of labs point, and with my background, I saw so much of it. I mean, and I have a really good friend and client. He's a guide at Beckridge. His name's Greg Ellis, and he's got a couple of really badass yellow dogs. And we trained them. It's not our training that made them good. They had the gift when we got them. I mean, they were birdie. They just naturally, and Tyler, with you running Goldens, you're going to understand this, because I think it's more innate in the Goldens in my experience, but these dogs just worked with us and never wanted to range too far. I mean, it was so natural. They worked with us. They checked in. They went and got put up birds. They brought them back, really, really biddable. And so Greg guides out at Beckridge, and 2 of his 3, they're hard pointing dogs, and we never taught it. But I never untaught it either because it
Yep.
doesn't bother me.
Well, yeah, it's like if that's the gene that's expressing himself and that's how they hunt, if it's not broke, don't fix it. They're finding birds. You don't know what could happen if you try to switch that natural instinct.
I wonder, and the funny thing is I say, well, it's this anticipatory reflex. They smell a bird and they kind of freeze. But you would think when they're guide dogs and they go to South Dakota every year, the amount of birds that they see, if that was the case, they'd get more comfortable with, there's a bird, and they would dive bomb it and there wouldn't be as much of a point, but they still do it.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, my theory kind of goes out the window when you look at how much experience his dogs have, and the point never went away. It might have even gotten stronger.
Yeah, I would say that's true. So, Diesel for 6 years, he has done this after the first time. I guess 5 years. So since that first point, it's been consistent. Every year, every bird, pheasant farm, not a pheasant farm, wild bird, quail. He'll do it on quail.
Wow.
Yeah, he does it on everything. And then the crazy thing about it too, Ryan, is, and Tyler can speak to this, but now his dogs are starting to do it. And I don't know if they learned that from Diesel because they watch him or what, but it's kind of crazy. Like all of a sudden they're starting to do it too. It's like, oh, well, that's kind of cool.
Not that you're asking for my opinion, but I'm going to give it anyway. Enjoy it. I mean,
Yeah.
It's
fun to watch.
I don't even try to make sense of it anymore. Just enjoy it, because it's still, I agree. And there's nothing wrong with that little flashpoint as an indicator. You start to learn your dog's mannerisms. And if you guys get the chance, like you said, whether you're taking your wife out, you're taking buddies out, if you ever guide for fun on the weekends or something, I mean, you just know their tells, and they got a nose that's way better than ours. So if they're doing their thing and there's a bird there, just say, hey, thank you for this great dog, and let's kill this thing, and let's just
Absolutely.
keep it. You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
it's really that simple.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To go on that, today I had Lola pointed on a bird, and so my cousin, he is back up from Alabama from school this week, and then he brought one of his friends that he goes to school. It's never, the guys never pheasant hunted before. They don't have pheasants down there, obviously, and so it was awesome today. Lola pointed on a bird, and I was just like, hey, everybody, get ready. And we're all close enough that, everybody got to see it. Bird gets up, happened to be a rooster. We shoot it, and everybody high fives. And I mean, it was just cool to watch, and it's just nice when you have a couple people that are more fresh, like you guys been saying, that you give that extra second or 2 seconds, to get them ready. And I kind of wonder, if you think about it, if you think about like an animal out in the wild hunting, they're like stalking their prey.
Mm-hmm.
The birds, like the dog's prey, they know, like they smell it, they know they want it. And they know that if I'm still enough and when I go in, there's a chance of me catching it. I've kind of always wondered, like, are they like, they want to catch that bird? Are they stalking this bird? And that's kind of why they're pointing. It's not like like you said, not a natural point like a GSP or something, but where it's the dog's like, I'm going to catch this bird.
I would have to say yes. I would
Tyler,
have to say yes.
we're not tying in your personal life stalking in dog hunting.
This is how Tyler met his significant other.
Yeah, slowly stalked.
Tyler, I don't know if you guys are familiar. I'm sure you are. If you've ever been to a pheasant fest or just being in the industry, the Smith brothers, Rick and Ronnie Smith, the pointing dog trainers, they're on the Purina stage every year, and they can train anything. But it's fair to say they specialize in bird dogs, more the pointing breeds.
Yeah.
But they absolutely go into that in their training articles and all of their content, especially your flushing breeds, because you have prey drive in a pointer or a flusher. It makes no difference. The prey drive is what makes them go out and do their job.
Correct.
How they respond when they come into contact with that prey, obviously there's natural and trained responses in both sides of it. But I would have to think that that predator type of mentality, kicks in. I think if you were to watch a wolf or a coyote hunt something, you'd see similar behavior. It's got to be.
Or like a fox, you always see that where the fox is like,
Yeah, I would agree.
boom, they pounce on the snow, and pull out a
Exactly. You see
whatever.
dogs flush birds exactly like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
it's crazy.
yeah, 100%. But regardless, I think I'm just one of those new school guys that some of the old school guys might grumble about. But to me, I don't really care how the dog does it. Let's just get it. I mean, I want it to be done at a high level, and I have standards, and I work really hard to train a dog the right way. But if there's little tendencies like it flash points, or it points a little bit, or it wants to pounce when it flushes, I don't really point a finger at that. I just roll with it.
Yeah.
Because we're getting the end result that we want. And it's really hard with me because most of the dogs I train are young.
Yeah.
And so I can't tell you that 150 birds later, which for some of my clients is literally a matter of 2 months, that it's still going to be the same. Sometimes it refines and gets better as well, So I don't point a finger at stuff like that. I don't like to overanalyze. Training dogs is there's a lot to it. It's pretty intricate as it is. I don't like to add to it,
So Ryan, are people bringing dogs to you to train from outside your kennel as well?
We have, Nick, because when you're getting started, I have Sammy Harms is a girl that trains for us.
Okay.
She's a family friend. I've known her since she was a toddler. She went to vet tech school. It wasn't for her. And when Southfork started 4 years ago, she reached out to me and said, I really want to work with dogs. Do you mind if I just come learn under you? And 4 years later, she's got 4 or 5 dogs in training, and this is how she
Nice.
pays her bills.
That's awesome.
So in theory, I'm considered a pro because we bill people for the training, but I more or less oversee it. I have 12 dogs of my own that I'm training.
Oh, wow.
And I own them. They're mine. So
Damn.
I don't have time to take anyone else's dog, but Sammy does that, and then we train together. And so we I oversee it, and she's great. She works really, really hard. She's a student of the game, and she would rather be with dogs than anybody else, and that's kind of a prereq for that job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, so Nick, I mean, to answer your guys' question, yes, we take dogs if we can, but I won't lie to you. Our strategy is to fill the pipeline with dogs that come out of our litters.
And so how many Goldens, how many labs do you have now?
In training right now, we have two.
What's the pipeline look like in terms of breeding? What do you guys have lined up, I guess, for the coming years?
The breeding plans, Nick, they vary based on, I mean, honestly, my personal life plays into it too. I mean, when you do a breeding, you're sending those puppies home 16 weeks, 4 months, later.
Yeah.
So if you do a breeding, you got to look at your calendar. Okay, well, we're supposed to be on vacation this week. Well, obviously, unless Sammy's going to cover for me, which has happened, or vice versa, she's going to be out of town. I'll help her and train that week or whatever. Our pipeline, breeding wise, I would like to have a litter at all times if I could, just because one litter at a time is ideal. You can socialize those puppies really well. If you have to, we like to intervene and supplement feed a little bit just to make sure, especially on a big litter. And what we're learning about puppy development, what you're doing with these litters at 2, 3, 4 weeks old, just in terms of handling them and being around them. It's amazing the difference at 8 weeks, versus one that sits in the whelping box for 6 weeks and sees nobody.
Yep.
So the pipeline, Nick, it really, the heat cycles are fairly consistent, but they're not perfectly consistent. So the crystal ball doesn't always work that way. I basically look at, what do I have for deposits? Who's interested? Do I have homes lined up? Because, this isn't my full-time job, breeding dogs. It's just something we do as a family, and we're very committed to it. Our lives revolve around it. But it's not how I pay my bills. So it's not driven by financial. It's just something we enjoy doing. I do try to keep Sammy busy though. Okay. And I want to make sure that she's got the pipeline. So in training, we really only take anywhere from 4 to 6 dogs at a time.
And then how long do you keep those dogs?
That's up to the client. I mean, we would take
Okay.
them all the way through their master hunter title at age 2 if the client wanted to leave the dog or work with us, where it's with us for a few months, goes home,
Yep.
We have yet to really get that kind of commitment, because I think we all agree, man, 90% of the market wants a family / weekend warrior hunting dog.
Yep.
And
really help.
that doesn't mean that they want a lesser trained dog, but it does change their perspective on what they're willing to invest in and pay for. And they also don't want their dog to be gone. So there's that balance of all those things.
Yeah, when I decided to have Diesel trained, I didn't really know what I was getting into per se, and that was my
Hmm.
first experience with HRC hunt test and all that stuff. And immediately then I was hooked, and I was like, all right, I since I travel, don't really have the time to go out every day and train a dog, and now that I have two kids, that's not going to happen. So I'll never not have a trained dog. I don't know if I'll do the hunt tests because honestly, it didn't bring me anything. But to have a dog that could do them and know that they could do them, I think that's enough for me. As long as they
But do
hunt
you
good.
feel, let me kind of flip the script on you and just ask this question. I think you just answered it, but you might not have loved the hunt test. Number one, what level of test did you run? Did you run a started test?
Yeah, and then
Okay.
I did the senior as well. I ran that one.
The AKC senior?
Nope. The
Oh, you
HRC
ran seasoned.
season. That's what it was.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. It's conceptually it's very similar. It's a double, a blind.
Yep.
It's the work is similar. Um, Here's my question. That dog is far better in the field than any other dog you've had, right?
Oh yeah, no, 100% he is.
So the reason that I look at it with Southfork Retrievers, if you were to say, well, what's your main goal? And I mean, let's get outside of, we're obviously trying to breed dogs that are an enhancement to what's already there. I mean, it's hard to say I want to improve the Labrador breed because let's face it, it's been number one registered dog in the
Yep.
nation,
Yep.
and the Golden is like number 3
Yep.
every year. So you're talking about the two most popular breeds in the country, arguably. Um, it's hard to improve that because they're just so great already, honestly. I mean, as long as you're breeding quality genetics and you're doing the right, things, you're producing dogs that are excellent across the board for so many types of people. But I want to get people into hunt testing, Nick and Tyler, but Nick, you're the one that said you don't know if you want to hunt test, so I'm going to work you for a second. Number one, it's the only off-season activity that sort of translates to what you do with them in the fall.
That is true.
Yep.
And I think number 2 or 1A, 1B is it provides you a framework, so to speak, or a barometer for where am I at in training.
That is good. That is a
You
good
know,
point.
what do I need to work on? I mean, if you're hunting waterfowl, I'm sorry, you need a dog that handles.
Oh, you do absolutely.
I mean, and here's the thing. I have a note here because I knew I was going to talk to you guys, and I know this is an upland podcast, but one thing, and it's kind of my mission, I'm tired of people differentiating the types of hunting and using it as a cop out to have a lesser trained dog or to not do certain steps in the process because you don't quote unquote need it. Now, I have 2 small kids. You guys know it's not like you have all the time in the world to train the most complete retriever. That's tough. I'm not trying to be, snarky when I say that.
No, not at all. I hear where you're coming from.
But I think, I mean, number one, if you're hunting upland, what'd you just tell me? You guys had a cripple that got away. What if you needed to run a blind and try to get the dog, not even to get him exactly to the bird, but maybe you wanted to get into a patch of cover 100 yards away just to see if he could wind it and find it.
Yep.
Sure, you can walk him over there, but it's sure nice to be able to line him up and send him and handle him in there, and then maybe you don't have to move as much.
That is true.
You know, you shoot a double. If you shoot a double, or as a collectively, South Dakota is the best place to. You guys get out there and flush a group. You've got 6, 7 birds on the ground. You've got 2, 3 dogs. You know, you could spend a bunch of time hunting dead birds, or we could mark them and kind of run these little blinds. Or hey, I want you to hunt this cover off to the right, and you want to cast that dog and get them over there.
Yep.
So my AKC master hunter, like a colt who's 10 years old, okay. And he's a pretty good upland dog. He's a bad example because he actually knows both games. But he's kind of my model for, hey, they can do both. They can learn both. These dogs understand the differences with the right exposure, the right training. I don't recommend upland hunting when you're right in the middle of certain stages of training in their early development in terms of the handling work. You know, I don't want to teach my dogs every time they see cover, they should hunt or break down and not run a straight line. But that only matters for a certain period of time. And then these dogs, if you're smart about how you do it, it doesn't matter anymore. And they know it both. So I like to get people to see it more as they're complementary of each other, you know, both games.
I like
If that makes sense. I don't know
No,
if
it makes
that's
complete sense. makes complete sense.
I think it does too, because, for example, my Goldens, I didn't take them anywhere to have trained, and I just started this past year a training program with them through Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah, that's Barton Ramsey's deal.
Yep. Yep. So I'm following their program. It's like a 52-week plus program, and from last year to this year, their obedience and just the way they listen to me in the field, um, it's just night and day difference. And
I'll second that.
it's, and I like, that's their program is they're big waterfowl guys, and I was kind of like, I was talking to the head, not Barton, but Josh Parvin is the other guy that does it. And when I was thinking about it, I saw it and I was like, I don't know if, they're 2 and 3 years old now. I don't know if I'll run them through hunt tests. I've considered doing it this year just to have experience doing it. And I was like, well, I don't know how much I'm going to waterfowl hunt, but I like the style that you guys are running with obedience, and I know it's geared towards waterfowl. And he kind of said the same thing, is the obedience part, handling the dog. He's like, yeah, you might not have to use the waterfowl, hand signals or, run as many blinds and stuff as you would in maybe waterfowl scenario. But it's nice to know that your dog can do that if you're in that situation.
I couldn't agree. I don't know Barton or his team personally, but obviously if you're in this game, you know of them. They're awesome marketers. They have awesome content. He runs a different style of a dog than me. I'm running American line field trial bred retrievers, Goldens or Labs, either way.
Yeah.
And Barton's running and I'm generalizing. I'm sure he's got all kinds of dogs in training, but he's the British style Labrador. He runs that continental style field trial where he stands over the dog and sends them in a different way. And man, honestly, what he does is probably more geared towards your everyday hunter anyway, which if you look at this from just a marketing standpoint, because he's doing it for a living,
yeah,
his program and his style of dog, the British lines, the stereotype behind them is that they're calmer, they're quieter. If you think about it, they're probably the perfect dog for 99% of people wanting a Labrador, right? On paper.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So whether you're doing his way or our way, and there's probably more similarities than we even realize, because you're still training a retriever. A retriever is a retriever.
Yep.
What you just said is spot on, and I think I will tell you this. I think if I get a dog in for obedience and the client's willing to give us enough time, we still force fetch the dog. And they're like, well, we're not hunting it. I don't care, because they get conditioned to receive corrections and pressure and turn off that pressure by obliging commands. And all of a sudden, a force fetch dog that's been through collar conditioning and formal obedience is the best house dog they've ever had, because they know how to work with you. It's about engagement and focus and teamwork. And, you're just taking that relationship of dog and handler to another level. And in a way, it's like, I could argue basic obedience, force fetch, collar conditioning for almost any type of working dog anyway, in the sporting side of it. I would say it's a must, and I'm stretching, but
I would agree. Diesel, I had him force fetch obviously at the trainer too, but when I didn't, he wanted to always play a game like, come chase me, I got what the hell you want. And I was like, God damn it, get over here, And the second after he got done with that force fetch, you could tell that you kind of had control over him, and they actually trained him to, his pressure was actually a shot collar. So
they collar fetch. Yeah.
Yep. They collar fetched him, so it worked really nice. So sometimes if I need him to, you can just hit the collar and say fetch, and he'll pick up whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, sure. And
actually pretty nice.
The thing about that is, there's a jury out there about e-collars and force fetch, and the word force is probably the worst adjective you could use if you want to be politically correct.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's nothing like what it sounds like, and it's not this militant control thing. The control is just kind of a pleasant byproduct of this really good communication between you and the dog. You take their comprehension of what you're doing to another level. And again, whether you're doing it Barton's way or my way, and it's not my way. I've adopted, other people's methods, but at the end of the day, this is about just having a better hunting dog. I mean, Nick, imagine ever hunting with a dog that's not force broke again.
Yeah, not gonna happen. But I did. He's my third lab. My first two were not.
Well, that's what I mean. Go
And
back to the days, because I do the same
yeah,
thing. I go back
I
to
know.
the first few dogs. They were natural. They were pretty. Everyone says natural retriever. They would come back and they'd spit that bird out within a step or two of me, and I always thought that was just how it was, and I was happy with it
Yeah,
until
I
I
did
started.
too. I did
But
too.
then they come back to the boat with a duck, and it's like they have to get up on that ladder, and what do they do when they have to climb? If they're not taught to hold and deliver to hand, and I mean, they're spitting it out, and then you're reaching in the water for it, and and this is a whole nother discussion. We won't have time to get into this. Force fetch really isn't even about a clean retrieve. Force fetch is about a dog understanding pressure and how to comprehend corrections and adjust behavior. The clean
Absolutely.
retrieve is a byproduct of it, and that sounds crazy, and it did to me for a long time, but that's something at another time probably to touch on. But yeah, I mean, either way you look at it, I don't care if you're hunting ducks, if you're hunting pheasants, it's not necessarily an excuse to skip what I consider the real foundation, of training a
Oh yeah.
retriever. I
I would
understand
never
other
understand.
breeds are different,
I
but
would have never understood what you mean. And if I didn't have diesel, I'd be like, I don't. It doesn't matter to me. But it does now. It completely
well, and
matters
so
to me.
you're a prime example. The first time, you are exactly like most people that show up and get a puppy from us. You show up with your wife, and maybe, how old is Diesel?
He's 6.
Okay, so I mean, you guys got Diesel long before you had kids, but either way, you show up as a family and you get your puppy, and you think you know what you want, and in your mind, you want to hunt this dog. You've hunted dogs in the past, and like anybody, everything's based on your own life experience, so you think you're
Yep.
familiar. But then you take that step and you go through more of this type of program, and all of a sudden you recognize, wow, this is a better experience. This dog is under more control. This dog is doing work at a higher level. I'm enjoying myself more, and it translates at home too. It's like, this is
Yeah.
a better dog all
Yeah.
around.
Well, jump off target a little bit there, but we hunt with my sister's boyfriend, and they got a Gordon setter. When we went hunting some real thick cover. I mean, you couldn't see the dog 15 yards in front of you. You just couldn't. It was that thick, and it was tall. We ended up losing his fucking dog twice, and the second time we lost him, we had to quit hunting, go back, get four-wheelers, and drive through the field until we found him. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
just have a
that's
dog that doesn't respond. We're like, what the hell, man? And he's 10, so the dog's old, and just started hunting really at 10.
does
So
he run
I
really big?
yeah,
Oh
I mean
yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
that dog will. He'll outrun our dogs. Like,
Well,
yeah,
I mean, those
but
pointing breeds, some of those pointing breeds, I last year, just to challenge myself and get some experience, I went and bought a couple of English pointers and trained them. I had a pro do a lot of the foundation work. I'm not going to take credit for everything. I just wanted to experience it, because it's like market research for me. I love to learn other methods and train other. That's why I have a Springer now. I'm just trying to put things together and make myself better. And I sold those pointers to guys that hunt more open prairie, because I said, I need a helicopter license to keep up with this fucking thing. I
yeah.
mean, it,
I
that
hate
thing
that.
was 250 yards out. How do you hunt with that?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
that's kind of how we are too. So the whole time we're hunting, my sister's dog's named Oakley. Her boyfriend the whole time is Oakley, 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 hey, Oakley, Oakley. And Tyler and I got our dogs whistle trained. You can't see them. You just hit a whistler. We got the locator collar, so you can just hit that and okay, they're over here. And you can trust them. You can trust your dog. I think that's one of the biggest things that probably force fetch does too. They understand, and if you have to give them a little pressure, and they know what the here command is or your whistle command is, they're going to take that pressure and they're going to come back to you.
That's the
Which
collar
is
conditioning on obedience,
yep,
what you just said.
Yep.
I
yeah,
mean, their
yeah.
conditioned response to those commands, it starts as shaping behavior. You get a young puppy coming to you for a treat. You're not even using the command yet. They just learn that every time they come to you, or they get on a place board and sit, or any of these little things, they get a treat, and they're like, well, okay, I know what I'm going to do. And then once all that's molded, now you start assigning a command and teaching it. Well, then they go through collar conditioning. And again, I'm skipping steps, but it's just ingrained. I mean, you've just done it and you've
Yeah.
conditioned this response. Your story about the Gordon, or my experience with the Pointer, they're not bad dogs, but I think application is so important for all of us to be honest about when we decide what kind of dog am I going to get. I mean, if you're hunting the prairies of North Dakota and the cover's 2 feet high and you can see that white pointer 300 yards out there and they're going to hold point and wait for you to show up on horseback, awesome. That's a great
Yep.
dog for you. That makes sense.
Yep.
But here in the Midwest, we're hunting, in some cases, fields that are a couple acres with timber around. So, I mean, when you look at a 200-yard ranging dog, I mean, you're not even watching dog work. You're just wondering how fucking far away he really is.
Yep.
And then you got a GP. Like, it blows my mind that you look at a
Yeah.
collar and go, my dog's 700 yards away. And I think to myself, holy shit.
Yeah. I have to walk my ass that far.
Well, yeah,
First
how
of
do you
all,
get him back? I
you
mean,
know,
I joke. It's like, how do you get that dog back?
It's
at
crazy.
the end of that hunt, Ryan, I didn't know anybody's name anymore. I thought everybody's name was Oakley. So,
I believe it. And I'm not, that 700 yard ranging, all age pointer, which is a real thing. They do that and it's impressive. But if you break that out, that's literally like half a mile.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and where I live, if you're at a club, a half a mile out could be in a subdivision.
Yeah. No shit. That's the truth.
And so by no means am I ripping on the
pheasant,
dog.
This pheasant is frozen. Brought me up from out of a freezer as a guy's yard here.
Exactly. But I mean, like I said, those dogs have a place, and I guess I'm just going to cover a little bit so no one thinks I'm ripping on the breed, but that English Pointer might be the most impressive in terms of what's ingrained in that DNA. I mean, they are probably the most aggressive bird finder, the best nose. They're metabolically different than other dogs. I mean, think about a dog that can run, go to South Texas in January and go to a guy who's guiding quail hunts, right? That dog is doing 15 to 20 miles a day, 5 or 6 days a week.
That's crazy.
And it's gaining weight.
It is.
I mean, it doesn't get tired. It doesn't, those dogs are definitely impressive animals, but you have to give them the right home, the right work. And it's no different than a retriever. I mean, it goes to say with all these breeds, but when you're hunting upland with retrievers, to me, you got to look at, I mean, we get cold, we get ice, we get wind, that double coated breed that can get out there in the snow and break cover, even just corn stalks and stuff. I mean, that stuff is thick and intrusive if you're not a tough, gritty dog.
Yep.
And a big rooster that sits tight and, wants to get up in the face. I mean, you need a dog that's got some go, but to me, I think a lot of us run retrievers because of the versatility and the fact that we have the conditions and, we do hunt in the water here. We're not on the ocean. We're not in Chesapeake Bay with 3-foot swells, but we are hunting a lot of inland lakes here where I live. We have a lot of inland lakes with a lot of potholes, flooded fields. German short hairs. There's a lot of breeds that are versatile enough to do it. I just, to me, that double coated breed maybe handles the cold a little bit better.
Yep.
And I know there's dogs out there that'll prove me. I'm not saying they're better or worse. There's people that do it with Boykin Spaniels and whatever, and that's great. But to me, they just made sense and I think you guys are the same way listening to your stories and how you hunt.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's why Tyler and I like to hunt together, right? Our dogs complement each other. They work similarly. We can kind of read each other's dogs. So that plays a key role, I think, in kind of how this whole thing started and why I was like, hey, look, we got a great team here. Let's see what we can do with it.
That's the other thing when you hunt together like that. Think about your first hunt and how many hunts later, even the dogs and the people start becoming you get that camaraderie, but you also get that I want to call it almost like an execution. Like you take the field and you guys just know how you want to do it, and the dogs get accustomed to it. And we do those 100-bird challenges at Beckridge, and it's like now that we've done it for a few years, it's hilarious because the first couple times we'd be having these little meetings and orchestrating what we're doing. Now it's almost like the beginning of an action movie. Everyone's just loading guns. No one's talking. Everyone just takes their position and goes,
Has a sling of ammo on them.
Exactly. But it's true. I mean, you just get used to it and you and that's a good thing. I mean, you want to talk about safety and everything else,
Oh
being able
yeah.
to read each other and kind of, assume what this guy's going to do and anticipate, and the dog, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Speaking of Sabula, they're open till I believe March 31st. After Wild Bird is closed here, we should team up, get down there, and do a hunt.
Yeah, you guys are more than welcome. Like I said, my client Greg Ellis is a guide there, so we try to do one a month.
Oh, nice.
So
Yep.
I'll let you know what our dates are for January, February, March, and if one or two of them work, jump on and come for sure.
Yeah, that'd be a
Okay.
lot of fun.
That would be a lot of fun.
It's awesome. I mean, as a trainer, I cringe a little bit. There's a lot of things, dog wise that are not favorable. I really hate when you encourage dogs to be in this clusterfuck of a situation where you're not in. When I say control, I mean, I'm pretty liberal about control in upland situations. If you're in gun range and you're hunting, especially a young dog learning the game, I really try to let them develop a lot of natural confidence. And, I like to teach quartering, and I'm learning more about that in the spaniel world. But I don't like when they get encouraged to just run around and be in front of anybody and steal retrieves from each other. And there's just a whole bunch of, disobedient behavior, but
Mhm.
you still cannot get that level of bird exposure really any other way.
Yes.
So there are pros and cons, and that's dog training. I think I was talking to a client today who was curious about hunt tests, and what's hilarious about this whole thing to me is that we train our dogs to hunt. You're supposed to run hunt tests to get a better hunting dog, but when you hunt your dog, you're untraining them for a hunt test.
Yep. Oh, there's so
That's
many bad
exactly
things
true.
that they pick up on during season that like you're just like, Jesus Christ. You go back, you go back out to the training field after like we were out in South Dakota for 4 or 5 days straight hunting, come back to pick up their training, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, did we even learn anything? It's just
Well,
like almost restarting with them sometimes, it feels like.
in a way, that's Tyler, that's so true. But the other side of it is it makes you sit back, and this is kind of where I'm at in the last couple of years is, maybe I need to look at how am I hunting and how can I do a better job of
Yeah.
not letting them slide in the first place.
Yep.
I mean, we
Yep.
do this in other areas of our lives. I mean, I'm trying to get back on track, just how I eat and take care of myself, and I don't work out and I need to. And it's just as simple as you just have to start doing it. So if you go hunting, be a little more conscious of your dog. But
Yep.
upland hunting, I understand waterfowl and upland hunting are both social events, but what I love about upland is that you get out and you're moving, you get to walk, you get to
Mm-hmm.
socialize, you kind of shoot the shit a little bit while you're out moving
Yep.
versus sitting there at 4 a.m. in the dark, and eventually you kind of have to be quiet and not move a lot because you don't want to disrupt anything. Upland wise, you go for your stroll and watch the dog. And so I like that part, but maybe it's hard to not hunt with people, but maybe everybody says, hey, you know what? Two guys maybe hang back a little, and then let's run one or two dogs at a time instead of four. Let's give each dog their opportunity, but let's not have this mass array of just, chaos.
Yeah.
And because I think it's tough when you get, like I said, I had a couple of dogs with confidence issues. Well, if they produce a bird, that retrieve is the reward. So if the more boisterous, confident dog goes and steals that retrieve, I'm not really getting the full benefit for that other
Yep.
dog. But you know what? I thought to myself, it's like, well, the only thing you can do is either work that dog by itself a little bit longer or hunt with people that understand what you're trying to accomplish. And, a duck dog's the same thing. If you're having issues, hey, guys, let this group go. I got to make my dog sit and learn how to be quiet. And, you know, there are certain parts of hunting that as a trainer, you just can't prepare for, and
Yep.
I think there's trained dogs and then there's dogs that have life experience. And it's hard sometimes to do both. I mean, a great
Mm-hmm.
example is if you sell a started duck dog to somebody and they say, well, how do they do in the boat? And it's like, that's on you. We
Yeah.
don't go sit in the boat, but it's amazing. It's kind of
That
amazing,
doesn't go. That's not part of the package.
well,
What do you mean?
it could be, Nick, because we keep it small enough, and honest to God, I've told Sammy this, I've said, think about it. And I hate to get out of upland. I know this is an upland discussion, but think about a duck dog. Nobody goes to training and sits for 5 hours and shows them nothing.
Yeah. That's the hardest part.
And I can say this about upland too. Let's go back to upland to stay on point. If if we go out to the field to train, and I like to do, 2, 3, 4 birds at a time. So I'll go out and plant like a 3-bird course, and then I'll go get the dog, and then I
Yep.
take them. I like to work young dogs into the wind, but nonetheless, you come in the field and you want to get those bird contacts. Well, let's extrapolate that over a few weeks or a few months or whatever. And then you go hunting and you walk for 2 hours and there's no birds. What does that dog think? It's like, well, every time I get off the truck, I'm getting birds. What is going on? And then you have to watch that dog, because some of them, they've got that drive and that motor, and they're good. It doesn't really matter, but that's a rare percentage of them. The young dogs, I call it a gate bird. With a young dog, I like them to get a bird right in the first 30 yards just to pump them up. And I just make sure that my next couple planted birds are 150 yards away, so that even if this one, if we miss it or if we just flush and chase, they don't bump the other two, en route, because they don't have the control to be recalled right away. And it's just no different than a duck hunting dog that sits there and whimpers after 20 minutes because they're used to getting off the truck, and you throw them 3 marks in a blind and then they go back on the truck.
Yep.
That's life experience, though. I mean, and if you look at a pro trainer, not like us, let's go to the big wigs, the guys that are training 30 dogs at a time, and they've got the big facilities, and they don't have time for that. There's no way they could do it. If they were going to work on the 5-hour drill, it would take them 2 weeks to get through their kennel.
Yeah.
So it's impossible. So as handlers, we have to sometimes think training is not just field work. Training is just obedience and patience and putting them in life situations. And it's really socializing. If you think about it, it's get them used to, and how many dogs are used to living on the back of the truck or being at a motel? And, you guys go to South Dakota for 5 days.
Yeah. They're in there 6 hours, 7 hours up one way, and then obviously from our spot, they drive around for a couple hours to find out where we're going to go and scout, and you pop out and hunt for an hour or two, and then you're back in the truck and you're driving again to find your next spot.
Yeah, and you speak of life experience, and not to get on the waterfowl topic, but this is my first year ever trying waterfowl. I never grew up with it or anything. So just getting my dogs into it, and the past couple times that we've gone, I haven't even brought my gun with. I just take the dogs out. I sit them on their place board next to me, and they'll get to retrieve, a goose if it goes down. But, I'm sitting there watching the dogs the whole time. And like we had this past weekend, probably a flock of, I don't know, there was probably 2,000-3,000 geese flying around us,
Wow.
and the guys are calling, and the dogs, like that's life experience for the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's mass chaos when you have that many geese flying around, everybody, all the calls going off, the geese are honking, they're seeing all this, and they're just like Murph, my older one, he's sitting next to me and he's just like shaking. He's so like amped up to see, that many geese flying around. But
man, that's a great example. And then, imagine one step further. Imagine, a group comes in, you shoot a few, and you got one flapping its wing 20 yards in front of Murph, and then another group comes. So the guy who's calling the shot goes, "Hey, don't send the dog. We're going to work this next group." And that dog is sitting there just amped. And now you got a bird flapping in his face. That's the stuff that, okay, that might not apply to upland necessarily, but imagine having that control of your dog anyway.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so you're right. That's something that you can try to simulate that shit in training, but at the end of the day, it is so different.
Yep.
Yeah, so different. And so
I'll hit on so like we'll do some training days, and I'll hit on the goose call a little bit, and they get excited, but there's no excitement level like when you have 2 or 3 guys in the blind tooting on the horn and legit birds are flying around you.
100%.
It's completely different, and it's given that dog. And I think that's one thing that, and we've kind of touched on it too, giving your dog as much exposure and experiences as you can from the beginning is going to help tremendously down the road. The more birds you can get on, the more places you can take them, the more different type of terrain you can take them through, the more people you can get them around. Just the experiences, like you said, is just something that'll make a dog.
Without question. And it's like, if you think about what those dogs, what their job is, and I don't care if this is a military or canine unit, law enforcement dog, or a hunting dog, their job is to execute
Yep.
trained responses in chaotic situations and have that mental wherewithal, which, go back to your own personal lives, whether you played sports or whatever. Practice and game day were different.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's, I don't care how competitive you are. I mean, I played sports. If you guys did, or I mean, hell, you could be in a rock band, and rehearsal in the garage is different than the night of the show. I mean, it's the same concept. It's like when you have
Yep.
people around and you just have that, and dogs feed off of you. They know. I mean, there's a reason that dogs can be like blood sugar detection dogs and seizure alert dogs. I mean, they're in tune
It's
with your
incredible.
pheromones and stuff. They know what's going on. And hell, if a guy comes into your house and he's there to like rob you or hurt you, he's nervous because he's about to do something wrong, and your dog's going to sense that. They'll be weird about a person like that.
Yep.
They know. So
Yep.
you put 10 guys excited about killing ducks in the blind, and then you're all sitting there. They know. They're not
Yeah.
stupid. And you are talking about retrievers, who tend to be the leading breed in all of those categories. You know what I mean? They're just intuitive like that.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. There's a story from the canine world for law enforcement, and this goes to show, just like what you were saying, when it's mass chaos, how you should be, how controlled a dog should be. There was a situation that it was a potential breaking and entering. The dog goes in to clear the house, and as the dog's clearing the house, a subject's located in a bedroom. However, and I can't remember how exactly it worked, but when the handler sent the dog in to basically go after this person, the person woke up and like yelled that he lived there. He was the owner of the place. He was just super hammered and fell asleep, and he like broke in through his window to get in because he forgot his key. The canine handler, the dog was literally midair. The canine handler was able to yell off to that dog, and the dog, instead of biting the person, when it landed, just like sat right in front of that person and growled, but didn't actually bite him.
Think of the composure,
You
and
know?
just think of that composure and impulse control that dog, and that dog at 8 weeks was already being conditioned to turn
Yep.
off the impulse and do something else for a reward. And that whole process is amazing. That's a perfect example of what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
It's crazy. And then, he
Yeah.
throws him his ball at the end, and he's super happy.
And that dog is like, yep, just another day at the office. But
Yeah.
think of the training and the
Oh.
conditioning and the
Oh,
shaping that
yeah.
took place.
Man, just absolutely astonishing what a dog can do when given the tools and to be able to do it.
But
in the
doing
time.
these activities with them, Tyler, is exactly what they need to get even close to that level. It's the dog
Yep.
that sits home and gets a scratch on the head and gets let out to pee a couple times at night after work that never really reaches that level of trainability and socialization and all of those things. It's
Yep.
having things to do with them. And I will not lie to you, as much as I focus on the field, a huge portion of my clients that come here and get a puppy do not hunt. The caveat,
I believe that.
it's true, and our goal is to change that, and you change that a couple of ways. I mean, number one, just like you guys doing this podcast, you have to be an ambassador of this way of life and this sport, and you have to expose people, right?
Yep.
And our hope is that somebody listens to this and goes, shit, I'm going to try upland hunting. Why not? The other side of it is, as breeders and trainers, we just want to keep having some level of success, whether we're hunting or in the hunt test venues where we can show that, hey, we can breed and train dogs that do this. Maybe you consider us as your breeder,
Yeah,
and then we
absolutely.
get more clientele that play the games, whether you're hunting or testing or both. But push come to shove, you don't have to hunt to make these dogs a great addition to your family. I would say
No.
you do need to be active lifestyle.
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, if you like to camp and hike, I mean, a field-bred golden or a field-bred Labrador is an awesome choice for you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There's people out there with border collies and boxers and other breeds that are high strung, and they wonder why they can't get control of them. Well, the dog mentally needs more. I mean, I don't know your guys' full backgrounds yet. I'm sure we'll get to know each other if we hunt and do all these things. But there were days like in school where you didn't even have practice or work out, but you went to 3 classes and you were fried because you were mentally doing something.
Yep.
Yep.
And dogs are the same way. Give them something to do. They don't have to run 10 miles a day to come home and behave. You'd be amazed what some little stimulus can do,
Yeah, 10,
make them
15
solve
minutes.
no doubt.
That can
Absolutely.
do it.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So that's a big part. I think one of your pre-questions to me was what can people expect? That same conversation we just had is a big part of what happens on puppy pickup day is give these guys something to do. Spend time with them. It kind of organically takes care of itself if you spend time with the dog and make it part of your life. I believe that
Oh
because
yeah.
they love to chase a tennis ball as much as they like to retrieve a bird. They only know what they're exposed to. So, I mean, if you
Yep.
like to put a little scent on that ball and hide it around the house and let them find it, fine. If you want to shed hunt, which is kind of the same thing I just said, go do it. They just want to be engaged, and if you can handle that, you're going to have an amazing, companion for hopefully 12, 15 years.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan, I got one more question for you here.
Okay.
Before we let you go, give us your all-time favorite hunting story with these pups,
To
or
be
with
honest,
one pup.
I'm hoping it's tomorrow, man. I really am.
That's right. With your
I,
dad.
I,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, or with my wife on Tuesday. I mean,
yep,
but I would have to say Colt. Colt's 10 years old. He's my first, what I would call field bred. The goal was to hunt and compete with this dog. Okay.
yep.
I had some hunting dogs that I had access to when I learned how to do these things, and I have some good stories there too. But Colt was mine. I got him when I was in school. I raised him in a college apartment. Um, and here we are now, and he lays next to the crib of my 1-year-old. When I can't find him, he's laying next to one of the kids. I mean, he knows his job. He's an amazing dog. I hope I have a few years left with him. He's very healthy, knock on wood. But I took him to southern Missouri to hunt flooded rice fields. And I know it's not an upland story, but the reason it was so cool is that was kind of my first year to venture out and try a different kind of duck hunting that I hadn't done before. And I took the dog with. And I think a big part of what we're talking about today is upland waterfowl doesn't matter. Go see another part of the country, go shoot another species of bird, go get some kind of awesome experience with that dog, because that's just as much a part of this as the hunting itself. You know what I mean? That adventure side of this world. Um, we're sitting in a pit blind and there's just a tornado of mallards over the top of us. Have you ever seen the movie Twister, where Bill Paxton's like, he's belted to a pole in the ground, he's in the middle of a tornado?
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
that's what it felt like. There was that many birds. It was kind of like
Jesus.
what you were talking about with the geese. And I looked over at this dog and he had the same look I had. He was like, holy shit. And he's just sitting there looking up. And I just knew right then and there. I mean, of that whole group, I think we only shot 2 or 3 mallards because I think we were all just in shock of what we were watching. But the dog made 2 great retrieves. Then we ran a blind on a cripple. And I just remember packing up the decoys and driving out of that flooded field. I had never seen a flooded rice field before. I'm not from there. I mean, that was just unique. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I could ever imagine not hunting ever again, or with a dog ever again. And um, here we are, and it's like I feel like we're just getting started. I mean, I want to go shoot grouse out west. I want to do some Montana, Wyoming upland stuff, and I think it would be
Yeah.
neat to go chase chuckers in their native. I'm starting
Mhm.
these Wisconsin chuckers, that are coming out of the pen.
Yeah.
I want to go shoot them out west, but I don't know. Have you guys done anything, outside of the Midwest upland hunting wise?
I
No,
haven't
no,
personally.
just South Dakota is all. I did get invited, so I ended up guiding. So in Story City, there's a pheasant farm here, or a preserve, whatever you would call it, club.
Story
Um,
City is it
Worth Woods Hunting Preserve.
yeah, we did a UGA event there.
Yeah,
Nice.
so
I know
I
Rachel.
so Rachel was on one of our podcasts,
Okay.
and Jeff, who owns the whole thing, I ended up guiding Diesel with some guys from Louisiana, and he destroyed it. He was having one of those days where it was like I know they're pen birds, but it was just like he was just on fire. Like he just didn't even miss a beat. I think we only didn't get they just only because they missed him that we didn't get like 2 birds because they missed him. And they invited me to go down to God, where the hell was it? Alabama or something to go Arkansas, I think it was, to go snow goose hunting with them. I wasn't able to go. I wasn't able to go because we were just having Maya at the time.
Sure, yeah.
But I was like, oh God. So yeah.
But I think what you just said, man, it's amazing. First of all, pen raised or not, watching a dog hunt birds will never get old. If it's in you, it's in you. And when you meet these people, you can go down there and shoot speckle bellies, and at some point your invite will be there, and it's because of your dog that you got that. Think about it.
I know.
You know what I mean? And I hear you, because both of my daughters, one was born on August 30th, which is the day before early goose season.
Yep.
And then my other daughter, ironically enough, was born on September 11th, which is right in the heat of early goose season. And them being 1 and 3, the last 3 years, my wife works at a salon and works on Saturdays. So my waterfowl hunting has halted quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But my preserve hunting has really escalated, because that's what I can do on a Sunday. And I like it because I can hunt a few dogs at once. So more of them get out and get to do it, versus if I go duck hunting, I really only bring one dog.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would love to get you guys out to that 100 bird.
That'd be awesome.
And who knows, if you guys, when you guys start making millions and you get a few big sponsors, maybe we'll go out west.
One can hope.
Start making millions. Yeah.
Make sure you share this podcast to help us get those millions.
Yeah, we're gonna have to make sure we get a few clicks to get there. But who knows? This might be the one to do it, because we're talking about labs supposed to point and don't steady your dog to flush, and all these people. I don't know what your comments are gonna be. It might not be good.
Well, who the hell are these people?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that Tyler and I always said, we will not edit our podcast. We want it to be 100% real. We're 100% down to earth guys, and that's something we're going to hold true to. We're not going to edit any of this. So what is on here is on here, and people.
I love it, man. It's an honest conversation, and I think with dogs especially, I mean, believe me, I am a fan of the highest level of trained dog that you can get. But at the end of the day, and if you want to learn more about upland training, I would encourage you guys to get a spaniel guy on here, okay? Like a Springer Spaniel. And there's some guys that I'll send you in a private message that you should reach out to, because if you want to talk about people who have figured out how to train quartering patterns and get more precise about how we comb a field and be really efficient at looking at every inch of this cover and making sure there's not birds here, these spaniel guys have truly figured that out.
Nice.
They use place boards. They use barrel drills. These dogs are doing these figure 8 patterns through a field. And if they miss a spot, and I'm generalizing, they can do like this little weird whistle, and the dog will come back and recheck, because it's like, hey, you missed a spot. Get back over here. They will stop and go back in there. And it's like, holy shit, that's pretty cool. Now, the other side of it is, I don't know if I want to hunt with somebody who's constantly on that fucking annoying whistle the whole time.
Oh, you missed your spot. Whatever their whistle.
That's just it. It's like, and it's that weird whistle where it's like, and you probably hear it in your sleep after you hunt with them all day. But and I'm contradicting myself, because that's a highly trained, impressive dog. But it's like, I don't know if I want that at times. I just want to turn them loose and go find birds. I mean, I don't want to make this more complicated, than it is. But like I said, I mean, I think people need to stop treating upland as an afterthought. And I think that you need to put a little work into it, early on, and develop those skills, because you can tell dogs that hunt upland birds, and you can tell dogs that are just out there to try it. I mean, there is a massive difference in the way that they work a field. And, but yeah, I mean, I appreciate you guys, bringing some attention to hunting upland birds with retrievers, because I think in general, we kind of picture the pointing dogs, the setters, maybe even some of the spaniels. The truth is, these retrievers are probably some of the more versatile, strong players in this sport. Man, I can tell you, if you go watch the Bird Dog Challenge, or who'd be a good guy for you to talk to is Mike Vaughn. If you remember that Bird Dog Wars show where they did the Bird Dog Challenge, they made a reality series about it.
I don't remember that.
Well, if you look into it, Mike Vaughn was one of the regulars on that show. And I know him pretty good now because we see each other at Hunt Test. We're both ex-MMA fighters and stuff, so we knew a
Oh,
lot of the
nice.
same people. And he's a pro trainer. He's got a big program, and he runs Hunt Tests, upland venues. He actually has a hunt club near Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh,
But I mean, there's a guy who has won at the national level these upland competitions, and he does it with Labradors.
Nice.
And I mean, and he knows the game, and he's a hell of an athlete. And I mean, his athleticism is probably part of it because he can move through a field, as good as some of these athletic dogs can. But I think people need to start learning about these upland venues and these hunt tests and these trials that they give you something to do in the off season. They offer you a way to train and keep your dog sharp in the off season, which is probably 99% of our issue,
yep.
staying on it. But yeah, I mean, upland with the retriever is, I don't think it's a lost art, but it doesn't get the publicity that I would think it would. I mean, I think that they're super strong in that area and underrated, if you ask me.
I would agree. I would agree with that.
What else you got?
I think that's it, Ryan. You have covered everything for us. We need to set up that hunt for Sebula. We need to do that.
Yeah, I mean,
this
if you
year.
and in serious, you have a new baby, so I understand. But if you want to, we'll talk, obviously offline about this. But if January or February works, hopefully we keep these winter conditions. I don't like to do it when it's 60 degrees. You never know with March.
Yep.
No. It should work. I mean, as long as as long as it's on a weekend, usually I can pull away for a little while.
All right. Well, we'll find a day. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great to get together and we'll shoot it live and do a couple live videos. And
do you guys do any video content for like a YouTube channel too?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll get a little more in tune with
started.
That. Yeah, cool.
It's tough to do upland with just a GoPro.
Oh man. I mean the stabilizers and stuff, and we're trying to figure all that out too.
Whatnot. You have to get about 10 batteries.
If you start finding some things that work well, let me know, because it's kind of funny. All these breeders and trainers, they're getting with the times, and they're doing a lot of video content, and it's starting the new generation of your potential clients. They're finding me on Instagram, and I'm just learning how to message on there. I mean,
hey, there's some shit I gotta text Tyler, be like, how the hell did you do that? How'd you do that? And tell me how to
exactly.
Tell me how to post this picture.
Man, you have to do it. You have to do it, or else you got no chance. You have to do it. So
honestly, I wouldn't have any social media platforms. I'm not really a poster or anything of that sorts if it wasn't for this kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I'm with you. If it
and I always tell Tyler, I'm like, I'm sorry, I haven't posted anything for like 4 or 5 days. I'm like, I'll get some content because he's constantly getting it on there, and I'm always kind of like, oh yeah, and then I just kind of, it's not at the forefront of my mind at all times. But
we'll share your stuff. We'll share your stuff. You guys have some really good hunting videos, and obviously with the Goldens in the lab, I mean, it's totally relevant for our page. We have a pretty good following. We've just been at it for 4 years, and we're active, and that's really the key.
Yep.
So
and we'll share some of your stuff too, and take you guys in a few things, especially this. So this podcast will go out
next Monday.
Yep.
Cool. After Christmas.
Yep.
Cool. I appreciate it, guys. It was fun, and we'll definitely hunt together, and then hopefully we continue to just share some content and stay in touch throughout the season. I think we'll keep trying to show these retrievers doing the upland thing.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Hey guys, thank you.
Fleshman Dustin, man.
Take care.
See you.
All right, later.